Bomberman is one of the all-time classic video game franchises, a top-down game navigating levels using bombs to blow up obstacles and hazards, a near-perfect blend of action and puzzle game as you fight for survival while trying to outwit your opponents. It's a perfect party game with equalizers inherent to the game's design so that anybody can pick up and play and have a great time, and its simple, elegant, yet addicting gameplay has fueled a successful franchise for decades. But like every long-running franchise, Bomberman has tried to reinvent itself a few times over the years, mostly without success. But no attempt has been more disastrous than Bomberman Act Zero, a game I've been getting requests for since I got my Xbox 360. Thrown together at the behest of Japanese executives based on stereotypes of what they thought Westerners wanted, and with zero involvement from Bomberman's actual creators, Hudson made a new, dark, gritty take on Bomberman, complete with a new origin story to reboot the series. Only for said reboot to die on its ass while the rest of the series moved on without it. And Act Zero is a mainstay of worst games ever lists, so let's find out how you could possibly screw up Bomberman enough to land in the ranks of Ride to Hell, Superman 64, Sonic 06, and many other delightful episodes that I've produced for this YouTube channel. On the off chance that you are not familiar with the series, here are the basics of Bomberman. All of the players are dropped into a maze with a lot of destructible blocks. Your only means of attack is to drop bombs that explode in a cross pattern. You can't walk through bombs, and your own explosions can kill you or set off other bombs. You can pick up items that give you a few powers, but mostly they increase the number of bombs you can have on screen at a time and the range of your bomb's explosions. You get hit, you're out, last bomber standing wins. It really is that simple. So again, how do you screw that up? Alright, let's just get the elephant in the room out of the way right now. This emo Iron Man wannabe is not Bomberman. He looks like concept art for a live-action remake of Full Metal Alchemist. I get that it's a challenge to adapt Bomberman's chibi design into something approaching realistic, but these two look nothing alike! And why the hell is Bomberman's right arm chained to his torso so that it can't actually do anything? And if you decide to make a female Bomberman, well, girl bombers in the main series look like this. Just a normal Bomberman with a heart, eyelashes, maybe a dress, and some girly girl body language. The girl bombers in Act Zero are Bondage Boob Lady, complete with a thong on the outside and tons of jiggle whenever you win. Because titillation is a key concern in a dark and gritty survival story about an underground bunker where mechs are made to brutally struggle for survival day in and day out. And yeah, that's what's going on here. In the mainline series, Bomberman and his brothers and sisters are superheroes that go around saving planets from bad guys and renegade mechs. But the dark, edgy, new installment throws that all out the window. Here, Earth is desolated from 300 years of war, and the bombers are cloned human-cyborg hybrids bred as bioweapons in an underground prison and forced to fight each other for survival in the dim hope that they can escape to the surface for the privilege of fighting in an apocalyptic war. It's like every edgelord stereotype vomited into one wall of text, or Bomberman by way of Zack Snyder. And yes, the game's setting is a reference to the story that nobody cared about in the very first Bomberman on the NES, with the armors vaguely based on the shit cover for that game. But did you know that Thor was originally a human doctor who got his powers from his magic walking stick that transformed him into Thor? Or that Superman at first couldn't fly and basically made up new powers for himself on the spot? Or that Iron Man originally could not exit his armor or else he'd die? Or that Wonder Woman's great weakness that stripped her of her powers was being tied up? Some character origins are forgotten and retconned for good reason! But truth be told, I don't care at all about the garbage new story and setting. This reboot was immediately tossed out a window and didn't affect the rest of the series. It's not important. I wouldn't mind at all if the changes to the gameplay were good. The gameplay is not good. The game has no local multiplayer of any kind, and its Xbox Live Online mode is very much not live, so all you've got in this hollow shell of a game are two single-player campaigns, Standard and FPB. The FPB stands for First Person Bomber. Beats me the hell why, though, given that it's not a first-person perspective. Did third-person bomber TPB just sound that much worse, or was FPB more edgy because you can pretend it's an F-bomb? Anyway, the FPB mode blows ass. Rather than the traditional bird's eye view that lets you survey the entire map at once to track enemies and plan out tactics, the FPB mode zooms the camera in on your bomber at an off angle and requires you to manually aim the camera. It can zoom out a little bit, but not enough to give you a good view, and there's basically no useful way to orient this damn camera. At first I tried putting the camera overhead, but you're zoomed in so far you'll never be able to keep track of any of the enemies. You have to give it an oblong view that'll make it harder to tell where you're going or to avoid bombs with any precision, and even with this moderately helpful angle, you still have to constantly stop and manually point the shitting camera yourself, because one or two turns when fleeing or chasing someone, and you can't see where the hell you're going anymore, much less track one of the AI opponents. And the camera periodically of its own accord swoops down to a really flat view to where you can't see anything. The zoomed in view will often have you running into dead ends and trapping yourself, and if the camera ends up at a diagonal angle, the game will struggle to figure out which direction to move when you hit a corner, completely stalling you out when you're trying to avoid getting blown the hell up! And remember, lots of power-ups boost the range of your bombs, so zoom the camera in on a tiny part of the board, and guess what, jackass? You're constantly going to get blown up from off-screen or run into bombs with barely a second to react. So take a high-speed twitch reflex game that takes careful planning and observation, rig the camera so that you can't see shit, and force you to constantly drop what you're doing to desperately try and wrestle the camera into a position that'll make the game playable for the next few seconds! Apparently the FPB mode was designed because some higher-ups at Hudson just heard that gamers wanted to try a game from the bomber's perspective. Really? Who are these phantom sources that said they wanted a Bomberman game that completely misses the point of a Bomberman game? Who said they wanted a Bomberman title that actively screws you? This reminds me of Sega officers who said, "But we heard people were sick of Sonic running fast. That's why Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric is butt-ass." Is that just the go-to excuse in Japan every time an executive wants to push a stupid-ass idea? Pretend that you're in top-secret communiques with a legion of diehard fans that totally love your games but have never actually played one? They do have a separate gameplay mode where you can do the solo campaign in the traditional overhead Bomberman view, but that crashes into the big problem with this game that makes it truly unsalvageable. One simple problem that ruins the entire thing. Bomberman Act Zero does have a solo campaign, just not a story to go along with it. Said solo campaign is 99 levels long. Good meaty campaign, lots of content, you totally get your money's worth, right? Wrong! You get one life to beat the entire campaign. There are no extra lives. There is no continue function. There is no save, load, or password system. There isn't even a damn suspend play option so that you can pause the game and come back to it later. You have to beat all 99 levels of the solo campaign in one sitting, and if you die one single time, you have to start over. And what makes this worse is, in the FPB mode, you have a life bar and health pickups, a decent safety net so you can take a few hits, but the standard mode plays like traditional Bomberman. You die in one hit. Play the solo campaign in standard mode, and you have to play all 99 levels without getting hit once! You stupid motherfuckers! Have you ever actually played a Bomberman game in your life? Have you ever actually watched someone else play one? Literally, the entire damn point of Bomberman is that there's a puzzle element because it's very easy to blow yourself up! You die on accident constantly in Bomberman! That's why it's a perfect multiplayer game. So why in the name of Solid Snake's finest box would you force players to beat an hours-long campaign without taking one single hit? For shit's sake, even Silver Surfer doesn't openly hate its players that much! What the hell were you thinking? So yeah, Bomberman Act Zero is difficult to the point of being practically unplayable. There's only one single enemy type across the entire game, by the way. Every single enemy in every single stage is an AI-controlled Bomberman. They don't really have patterns to their movement, so every time you go to kill one is a tedious exercise in trying to find some way to trap the little bastard, since they'll always avoid your bomb blasts. Mostly. And it also means that every single opponent that you face is an even match for you. You're literally just playing 99 rounds of a basic Bomberman multiplayer stage against bots, and that's what passes for a campaign. The laziness here really is astounding. I admit that I've only played 3 Bomberman games before, 93, 94, and Super R, but all 3 games have a fantastic solo campaign. They have a wide variety of enemies, each with their own attacks and basic little AI patterns. They start you out simple, fighting basic enemies that gradually get more advanced. You observe and plan around their movement patterns and new abilities with careful timing. The worlds are all brightly colored and unique, with varying stage hazards and new mechanics to add spice to the gameplay, and at the end of each world is a big, fearsome boss to push your skills to their limits. Other Bomberman games are actual games, with hours of compelling content even when playing alone. Act 0 is one level with exactly one plain board that is copied and pasted 99 times. There is exactly one enemy type that is copied and pasted 99 times. All they did was program one single basic AI multiplayer match and force you to play it 99 times. For any game, this would be a bad joke, but for Bomberman fans, it's pathetic and flat out insulting. This is like if you made a fighting game and the survival mode were the only gameplay mode that they included in the entire release. May have gotten away with it on the Genesis or all those crappy arcade ports on the Nintendo 64, but from about the PS2 era onward, you'd be laughed off the stage and given formal orders to go screw yourself! Trying to kill the AI bombers can be a major headache. They're pretty competent at dodging bombs and will wriggle out and escape pretty much any time you go to attack. The best way to kill them, at least early on, is to follow them, wait for them to set a bomb, and then try to trap them against their own explosion. But even as little as I've been able to progress in the campaign, some AIs will just keep slipping away from you again and again and again until time runs out and you have to rely on the collapsing stage to kill them before it kills you. This is all standard for Bomberman multiplayer modes, a tit-for-tat of cat and mouse with enemies, and that's fine. In a casual game where you're accepting that you're not going to win every round, it's exhilarating and fun. But when it's a solo campaign where you have to do this crap for every single enemy across 99 frickin' levels without losing once, it gets exhausting really damn fast. And if the game's random number generator just doesn't feel like giving you bomb pickups, which happen to me pretty often actually, trying to trap the AIs with only one bomb is even worse. See, this is why the other Bomberman games specifically program in the items that you get so you always have what you need when you need it, so you don't get screwed. And if an enemy grabs one of the few items that appears before you do, it's just gone. You don't get to pick up dropped items once the last enemy is dead. Again, something that other Bomberman solo games let you do. If you want to have any hope at all of getting past the first few levels, you're going to be spending most of your time playing the garbage FPB mode. Not just because FPB gives you a health bar so that you don't just die instantly, but because the AI is noticeably dumber anytime that you can't actually see them, blowing themselves up or forgetting to dodge much more often when they're off screen. I don't know if this is deliberate programming or just the game screwing up and having trouble tracking them, but unless you're a hardcore expert, this edge is the only thing that'll get you further than 10 minutes in. The game does have boss battles, or at least a poor substitute. Every 5th level or so, they send you against a bomber that spawns with a crap load of power-ups, so that it just starts out significantly stronger than you, and it'll just spam bombs with humongous explosions reaching across the whole map, non-friggin' stop. So again, really bites that the brand new camera can easily have you blow up from off-screen, and just fantabulous that slipping up once or twice starts the game over. At least I think they send in these assholes every 5th level. I kinda can't get past stage 8 or 9. The game also has some major balancing problems. One of the classic Bomberman power-ups is the line bomb, which lets you set all your bombs at once in a line straight ahead of you. It's not terribly useful. It requires a lot of other power-ups and is pretty easy to dodge most of the time, but sometimes it's handy. But Act 0 adds another power-up called the Infinity Bomb, which lets you set an unlimited number of bombs on the field at once. Does anybody care to venture a guess what happens when you combine the Infinity Bomb with the Line Bomb? It nukes the entire field instantly! Especially if you also have the remote detonation bomb item to trigger them all right away before anybody can find cover. Or even better, the penetrating bomb that punches through all the soft blocks on the field at once. And yeah, I've seen playthroughs by people who did actually make it to the end of the game. They just spam this over and over again. Breaking the unholy fudge out of the game is how you win. Hell, just the Infinity Bomb plus the remote detonator is a deadly combo. Run across the stage setting a conga line of bombs, then find cover and nuke tons of different lanes and angles all at once. There is a funny quirk to the item system though. When you take a non-fatal hit, you have a chance to drop items, and this can include speed down items so that getting hit makes you faster. Also, you can't have the penetration and remote detonation powers both at once. I suspect this was not done for game balance, but because both items change the color of your bombs and they couldn't figure out how to have both at once. And on top of how simplistic the game is, it's also fairly glitchy. My controller would regularly disconnect in the middle of games for no friggin' reason, and if you try to change your character's color or gender, it's a total crapshoot whether the game actually registers it or not. And every time you first spawn, the stupid-ass camera clips into your character's body multiple times. Did anyone playtest this? Well, thanks pretty much exclusively to the infinite line bomb combo, I did manage to get to level 11, where something different finally happens. The fight starts with a low time limit, with pressure blocks already collapsing the stage. Well, this should be pretty— No! Shit, I got caught in the middle of my own line bomb. A long-running little quirk of this particular item. Well, so much for that. Oh, and the game's online multiplayer, which is pretty much abandoned unless a major YouTuber announces that they're doing an event, yeah, it sucked too. One basic map and all the hideous balancing issues with hackers piled on top of it. Curious, since Bomberman 93 and 94 both had at least 8 multiplayer maps apiece, each with unique gimmicks that kept shuffling up the gameplay like spinning gates, conveyor belts, warp holes, regenerating blocks, maps that startle the characters at max power or give them super speed. Seriously, how is it that literally everything Act 0 does is horribly outmatched by the exact same games literally a decade older? From what I've heard, you're not missing anything if you can't beat the campaign on account of, being human. Apparently all that happens is the final level opens a door to the outside and you're just shown the wallpaper from the game's main menu. This could not more obviously be a budget title made for about $10. I'm honestly stunned that Hudson's logo is actually on this game because it is so inexcusably cheap and lazy that it feels like Konami outsourced it to a basement in the Czech Republic. Like they did with Silent Hill. This game was made solely to capitalize on Xbox Live's popularity for online multiplayer, except even the online mode was threadbare and horrifically balanced and shitty, with a garbage campaign of just play 100 multiplayer matches tacked on. You're left with a pitiful game that has no redeeming qualities to it at all, and barely any content, pissing off even the most die-hard of fans and utterly failing to rope in any new ones. Bomberman Act 0 is trash, and an utter humiliation for such a great franchise. A sequel called Bomberman Genesis was planned but never got off the ground because, well, this thing sucks. And the following year, Hudson Soft cranked out the online multiplayer Bomberman Live, actively slammed Act 0 in the marketing campaign, and they've treated Act 0 as a hideous embarrassment ever since. Although someone at Hudson was clearly pretty proud of Act 0, because before the company gave up on this dumpster fire, they published this blog post on their website. Forget Bully, GTA, or Saints Row, Bomberman Act 0 is turning out to be the most controversial game of the year! I'm here to tell you that Bomberman Act 0 is actually pretty damn cool, and if you think I'm talking out of my ass, Hulk Hogan, check out my Xbox Live Gamer card! Forget the haters out there and all the lemmings who've jumped onto the bashing bandwagon! I hope one day to be half as drunk as the guy who wrote this. The blog post, long since deleted but preserved on the Wayback Machine, is titled 5 Reasons Why Bomberman Act Zero Rocks. Reasons 2, 3, and 5 are all because online multiplayer, the online multiplayer that nobody liked and was quickly abandoned. Reason 4 is because high-def graphics, even though, again, uglier than the decade-older TurboGrafx-16 games. Reason 3 outright states they believe that nobody cares about Bomberman single player, and reason number 1 is because it's titled Bomberman, and thus you must buy it for brand recognition, even though it sucks. But the blog post ends with this rather glorious and not at all chuckle-worthy quote. But if you're still a hater, then go play on your Bomberman PSP! Bah! And play with your Hello Kitty toys too! This I command! If you'd like to know more about Act Zero or want to check out some snazzy wallpapers, hit up our official game page now. Well, at least he recommended a better game. Now I'm going to go play Super Bomberman R with Solid Snake, Pyramid Head, Dracula, Simon Belmont, and all the other guest stars from dead franchises that Konami drove into the ground. Predator Concrete Jungle is next.
Mission complete.